All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. First of all, before I do anything, I just need to make everybody aware that we are going to be recording this webinar. So our president of NMAG, Chris, is going to be taking care of that for me. He will be running the chat, keeping an eye on that for me, and letting me know if you guys have questions during the presentation. Okay. My name is Corey Messenger. Oh, Chris, are we recording? Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you all so much for being here during the evening. I appreciate it. Hopefully what you get out of this is worth it. I'm going to move rather fast. I have a lot of information to cover, and because you'll have the ability to go back and access the video on YouTube, I want to get in as much as possible. So if I am going a little too fast, know that you can go back later. My name is Corey Messenger. I am the membership chair for New Mexico Association for the Gifted, and I teach 7th and 8th grade gifted seminar in Rio Rancho at Eagle Ridge Middle School. So this presentation tonight, we're going to predominantly focus on Habitica. And then depending on how much time we have left over at the end, we're going to talk a little bit about Gamestar mechanic as well. So here we go. Hold on to your hats. So first of all, if we're going to talk about gamification, we kind of have to define that, right? So gamification is broadly defined as utilizing gaming dynamics to kind of drive participation, motivation, whatever it is that you're trying to drive. Gamification and using those gaming dynamics is a way to encourage those things within our lives. We might ask, why gamify? And I can tell you, if your students are gamers of any sort, they'll probably latch on to some of these ideas. If they're not, that's okay. You know, we all have different approaches for different things. This might not be the best approach for them. Okay. So first, right at the top there, some of you guys may have read the work of Mark Prensky. He's the guy that kind of originated the term digital natives. Right. Most of the kids that we have, all the kids that we have now, I should say, are digital natives. They've been surrounded by this technology since the day they were born. They're very familiar with it. The rest of us, obviously, digital immigrants, right? So this is something that they tend to identify with. Second, gamers are everywhere. If you've never read the book Reality is Broken by Jane McGonigal, I highly recommend it. Phenomenal author and one of the few people with a PhD in gaming. But there's and this data is actually back from 2011. So this has changed quite a bit to this point, I'm sure. But at the time, 667 million gamers worldwide. Right? We tend to kind of have the stereotype in our minds a lot. And this has gotten better over the years, but we tend to, when we think of gamers, we kind of get that stereotypical image, like what you're kind of seeing on your screen with me right now, right? The guy with the headset on. But it's not just males, right? 40% of gamers 10 years ago were women. That's probably actually gone up as well. And, you know, Jane McGonigal also mentions that 94% of girls under the age of 18 play games regularly. So this is something that is an important piece of their lives. And gamification is around, it's everywhere. Whether we realize it or not, these things are all around us, and they're kind of driving the things that we do in our daily lives. There is a gentleman that gave a TED talk by the name of Seth Pribach. If you have not seen that, another thing I highly recommend. It's one of the better TED talks out there. It's old, but it's still very relevant. And what Mr. Pribach talks about is some of the gaming dynamics. Gives us some examples of them. So number one, there's the appointment dynamic, right? This is most commonly, right? If you're in the right place at the right time, you win. And so the one that we're probably the most familiar with in our lives is happy hour. Right, you come to our bar between 6 and 7, your drinks are half price, you win. So that's one of them, the appointment dynamic. Second, influence and status dynamic. Right, we'll see this sometimes. The different colors of credit cards. Right, does the color of the credit card actually matter? No. Yeah, you might have a higher limit or something, but we all know that when you see like the black card, that's the one that's kind of like the higher level, right? So there's this influence and status dynamic as well. That's what we sometimes refer to as levels within games. And we see this in school. Honestly, you know, school is set up to actually be a game. As Seth Pribach says, it's a poorly designed game because we've got grades and you actually lose points as you go throughout the year instead of building up, right? But it is a game dynamic all the same. There's also the progression dynamic. Some of you may have seen this. Any of you who are using the Edgenuity platform this year, while we're all doing virtual school, you may have seen the progress bars that Edgenuity has on there. They have shown that a majority of humans will, as they see this bar, right? Maybe another example you might have seen, LinkedIn, right? When you start setting up your account, they have that status bar up there, the progression bar for you to kind of mark where you're at as far as your progress setting up your account. And we will work, when we see that progress bar, we will work to fill that thing and get it all the way to the end. There's something within our psyche that wants to complete that. Those of you that know me know that I'm probably not going to go through a presentation without mentioning Kung Fu or martial arts somewhere. I do practice martial arts for the last probably four years. And I noticed within my first couple of weeks with my Sifu, or my master, he would do things in the class where he would kind of utilize these ideas without even really realizing that he was doing it, right? So the position that you see this guy doing, this is a stance called Hobu. And when Sifu asks us all to go into Hobu, he's a little bit more lenient with those of us that are on the older side, but with the kids that are in the class, he challenges them to go as low as they can, right? Much like you see this gentleman doing on the screen. And Sifu will actually throw out the idea, okay, whoever can go the lowest in a proper Hobu stance wins 1 million Kung Fu points. Do the points mean anything? Nope. But they suddenly start competing over who can go the lowest because they want to get those imaginary points. So with all this in mind, let's move on to Habitica. Okay, I stumbled across Habitica years ago, trying to find some kind of organizational tool for one of my students that was brilliant, but could not keep himself organized to save his life. Right? So I kind of stumbled across this, and it's actually been a blessing in my life, because this is what I have used for the last 5 years now to keep myself organized every day. So Habitica is a tool, website, and an app. You can download it for free from the Play Store. I'm not an Apple person. I'm pretty sure you can find it on Apple as well, though. And they use a gamification process to help keep kids and adults alike motivated and organized throughout their days. So they gamify your tasks and your habits. They also set up, when you first create your account, we'll get into that in a minute, you create your own avatar. And that's kind of your character within the Habitica realm, if you will. Now, there's no actual, what you would probably think of as gameplay, right? If you think back to like the classic Mario Brothers games, you're not actually like controlling a little figure on the screen. On this previous screen up here in the top right corner, that's my avatar. I change him pretty regularly. That's what he looks like at the moment. But that's my character. He doesn't move. He just stands there. So it's kind of an old school, for those of you that remember the old role-playing games where you would put things in the, you would make a choice on the computer. You'd say, the wizard will cast this spell, and then it would tell you the result, right? Oh, the wizard defeats the dragon and lives happily ever after, whatever it might be, right? It's very much based in that idea. The other cool thing about Habitica is that it is an open source structure, which means, if I have students that start using this, once they kind of get into it and get familiarized with it, if they know coding, if they know pixel art, they can actually contribute to the platform as well. There's ways that they can actually go in and contribute their artwork to be used within the website, to be used within the app. So it's kind of cool, because you get to actually contribute to the community and not just use it like a bystander, if you will. So as you're going through Habitica, you track your habits, your goals. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. You earn rewards as you go through and finish your tasks and meet your goals. You can also set up accounts and teams with friends. Not a requirement. Again, we'll talk about that in a few as well. So I know there's probably a lot of you right now. I know when I'm sitting in these kinds of things, it's usually about 5 minutes into the presentation when somebody's telling me about this stuff, and I start thinking, okay, I make a teacher's salary. What's this going to cost me, right? Habitica, totally free. Now, they do have some premium features. I've been using it for 5 years, and I've been just using the free version. There are some advantages to being a paid premium member, but the free account works for my needs. So that's what I've used for the last 5 years. You can subscribe, and the folks that run the company are always very grateful when they have folks to do that, because it helps them out and keeps it going as well. So what about student privacy, student safety? Any of you that are teachers, that's the first thing your IT department, your ed tech is usually going to ask about as you're trying to use these things. The most important thing that Habitica asked me to, when I started kind of doing these presentations about them some years ago, they really want me to just make sure that I mention up front and let everybody know, if the child is under 13, they must have their parents' permission to use it. Okay. And really all the parents have to do is email one of their administrators. Her name is Lemonis. And they just like to know that they have the younger kids on there and that the parents are okay with it. Now, with that being said, there's no inappropriate content. I've been using it every day for 5 years. I have not once ever seen anything inappropriate on this website. However, because there is the ability to private message others that are on the website, they do kind of have to put this in place as far as, the younger kids, and just make sure that their parents are aware. Okay. When I talk to my students about this, I have them create unique usernames. Okay. I don't want them actually using their names. I always tell them, if in 5 years you have some psychotic ex, I don't want your ex being able to find you on Habitica and harass you. So come up with a username that's not your actual name. And anything on there, the comments, anything that's posted, the administrators keep a pretty close eye on it, which is probably why I've never seen anything inappropriate. So when you get on Habitica, where do you start? You start by creating your avatar. Okay. This is a very early version of my avatar. And you can change it around every day if you really want to. I don't change mine too often, but you create an avatar that pretty much, you can set it up to look like you. You can set it up to look like, as you can see the examples on here, pretty much anything you want. Very customizable on this website. This is the big part. So this is the main screen. This is what I see when I log in on my computer. It looks a little bit different on my phone. Still very user-friendly. Over on the left-hand side where you see habits, let me say up front here, this is all customized for what you need. So when you're setting up your account, when I set mine up, everything that you're seeing here are things that I actually inputted in here. So you can see habits all the way on the left side of the screen. These are things that you might do multiple times a day. Okay, for myself, I have trouble remembering to drink water. So I have that set up where every time that I finish one of my bottles of water, I come in here, I click that little plus symbol and I give myself some points, right? And that bodes well and helps out my avatar and helps keep him alive. The second column you see there is dailies. The dailies are things that you do once a day. For me, I like to clear out the sinuses. I do a neti pot every day. I take my allergy meds every day. And Habitica is the reason that I don't forget to do these things. The to-do, the third column there, the to-do list is pretty much exactly what you'd think it is, right? These are one-time things. You put them in there. You can see I've got Habitica presentation on there, so I can go in there when I'm done, give myself some points, mark it off. If you've noticed the colors, those vary depending on the column. Now within the to-dos, you can see those red ones. That means that those are to-dos that I've had on there for a very long time. They start off being yellow when I first enter them, and they continually become more, they move into orange and they move into red the longer that those to-do lists have been sitting in your queue. So it also changes the amount of points, which is kind of cool. So it does use these small little ways to encourage the users to keep up on things, right? The last there is rewards. Everybody has access to the Enchanted Armoire. That's the chest that you see sitting there. And that's where once I've got some gold saved up from completing my items, right? As I complete my items, I mark them off. It gives me some points. I also sometimes find random things. You might find some gold. It might say you found a wolf egg, right? You find these random items as you're completing your tasks. There's also the potion that you see off the side there. So if my health starts running low, I don't have to worry that I'm going to kill my character as long as I've been somewhat smart about it, and I can use some gold to buy myself some extra life. Okay. Like I mentioned earlier, you can also start a party within, no, I don't mean, party. You can start a group or a team, right? So you can see here, I've set one up with my son. And this has actually been really, really useful in our household too, just in the parent-child dynamic, where my son sets this up. And if he does not take care of his responsibilities, it not only does damage to his avatar, it does damage to mine because I'm part of his group. So it kind of gives me a less naggy way, if you will, of talking to him about his chores. So if he doesn't get his dishes done, and I get up the next morning and I go, hey, dude, I just checked, like, I'm losing life here. What's going on? Right. It gives us a little bit more of a team mentality where we can approach those things together, and keeps us accountable with each other. Habitica also offers challenges. Users, the actual website will post some every month, as well as most of them are posted by users. You can see that there will be anything from mental health exercises to cleaning challenges to challenging you to go vegan for a week. It really varies. You'll see different challenges every month for all kinds of different topics. What happens when you join these challenges, they automatically add, if you see on your screen there, the one that says eat plant-based, go vegan, you can see if I were to join that challenge, it's going to add a habit, and it would give you more details as to what the habits are, but it's going to automatically add that habit to my queue. It's going to add a couple of those dailies for the challenge to my queue, as well as some to-dos. All right. At the end of these challenges, depending on the reward that's being offered, they'll choose a name at random. Sometimes they choose multiple names, and then you win some gems. And the gems are really, kind of going back to the premium accounts. The gems are usable to buy certain items within the game. Okay. If you are a premium member, you can actually purchase the gems. If you're not, if you're just doing a free account like I've done for the last 5 years, this is how I acquire my gems. I enter challenges, I keep up with them, and hopefully every once in a while, I win one. You can also start quests with your group. Okay, so you can see here, this is a quest my son and I started, and it was fighting the vice. And you can see there, just like I mentioned earlier, this kind of set up like an old school role-playing game. Right. Every time I log in, I might cast a spell. But once I've logged in for the day, Habitica goes in and looks at, did I finish all my dailies the day before? Right. Did I take care of all my responsibilities? If I did, I'm going to do a lot of damage. You can see on the example that I included there, the shadow worm actually damaged my party because I had one of my dailies that I didn't do that day. So you can see it attacked us and did some damage, which means my son had an excuse to come harass me why I wasn't taking care of my responsibilities. As you go through the quests, there's different kinds of them. There's some that are only purchasable with the gems that I mentioned a moment ago. You can see those up in the top left corner. We also have the gold purchasable. And those are kind of cool because the gold, anybody, whether free or premium account, you can buy the gold purchasable ones, and you earn gold the longer you keep using Habitica. There are also pet and mount quests, which we'll talk a little bit more about, but these are ones that are solely there to acquire your companion animals. So here's some of the rewards. This is when I go into my inventory. This is what I see most often. As I finish tasks, I might occasionally find eggs right there. And there's all kinds of different eggs, right? There's wolf eggs, there's dragon eggs, bear eggs, lions, tigers, and bears. I think I just used a joke that I'm going to use in a slide in a couple minutes. Act like you haven't heard it before, okay? So you also find potions. So for every kind of animal, egg, you can use a different kind of potion to hatch it. I can hatch a zombie wolf if I want. I can hatch a cotton candy pink bear. I might want to hatch a, a skeleton fox, right? So there's all kinds of different combinations. I will say the pets do not, they don't give any advantages. It's really just to add a little bit of extra fun to it. But then you have to also feed the pets, right? So you'll also occasionally find food, and you have to kind of try to figure out which food goes with which animal to get the best benefits. Once you start acquiring pets, you will have a stable. So you can see here, these are all, you can see my wolves, my dragons, and my line of pandas there on the bottom. As I said, no benefits, but it's a little extra added bonus to kind of try and find some cool things as you're taking care of your to-dos. They also have special pets that you earn the longer you've been on Habitica. So you can see the tiger that is in the top right corner there. That is the veteran tiger. I think you earn that, if I remember correctly. You get that one after 3 years of being on Habitica and participating. But you can also hatch some with magic potions. They have magic potions that they put out different times of the year. So around Halloween, they have one that is the ghost potion. So you can see I got myself, wolves are my favorite animal. So I got myself a ghost wolf. And after you've fed them enough times, the pets turn into mounts, which is also no benefit, but a little something extra to do with your avatars. And they have, look, you've never heard this joke before. They have lions, tigers, and bears. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. And the mounts, if you get those special pets, you can also raise those special pets into special mounts. Okay, you also, you will find equipment throughout Habitica as well. As you're taking care of to-dos, as you're taking care of your dailies, sometimes items drop, right? Just like they would in any other game. So you might find a shepherd's crook, you might find a bow and arrow, but you acquire all these different items that give your character different attributes, right? They might become more resistant to damage if you're in a party and you're doing a quest with them and you're supposed to take damage, but you might have a little bit of extra buffering there, right? So it really depends on the items that you earn, but it's very, very customizable, which the kids really, really enjoy. So they also have, there's a difference within the system for equipment versus costumes, right? So this is another, I don't know if I want to call it an advantage, another aspect of Habitica that my students have really enjoyed. Especially the ones that get really into gaming and kind of customizing their character. When they find out they can actually put equipment on themselves, right? So you can see I have equipment there. I have some like wings that I have listed on my equipment because I like the benefit that I get from them, but you don't actually see them on my avatar because the costume column is actually what's showing, right? So the costume items that you want to wear might not give you the benefits that you want, but they actually separate those out. So that kind of works out. The benefits, the equipment has various benefits depending on what you want to accomplish with your avatar. Okay. If you want to increase your strength, that helps you out with the boss fights. Your constitution minimizes the damage that you take. If you increase your intelligence, you earn more XP from accomplishing your tasks. And if you increase your perception, you have more items drop as you check things off. So again, even this aspect, very customizable depending on what you want to do with it. And then another very important aspect of gamification is these achievements, right? So you can do anything as far as these achievements. They've got very basic ones that you earn kind of when you're first starting out. They've got some that are seasonal. If you send a virtual Valentine's Day card to somebody, you might earn a medal for it. Then they also have special achievements that you see in the bottom right that you can earn by actually contributing to Habitica. So if you have one of those students that say, I've got a student that is really into pixel art and he might want to contribute some of his pixel art to Habitica for one of their quests, that earns him a badge that he gets to show off to his buddies that they don't have. And so it kind of goes back to one of those other gaming dynamics that we talked about, where he's kind of got some bragging rights there. He's got that status dynamic going. And then Habitica will also keep track of all the quests that you've completed, as well as those challenges that I mentioned earlier. when you win those, not only do you get the jewel, but it keeps track of which challenges you've won over the years. And then this is one of my favorite parts of Habitica. When you get to level 100, right? So as you go through Habitica, you're continually leveling up. And I think I didn't mention earlier, you actually pick a class when you set up your character, right? You can choose to be a warrior. You can choose to be a mage. You can choose to be a healer. I started off, let me think. I think I started as a mage, because who doesn't want to be the wizard, right? After I got to level 100, I found out you automatically get the Orb of Rebirth, and you can reset your character and kind of start, not necessarily from scratch, right? Because you're not going to lose your pets, all those pets and mounts that you've raised up and you put all that effort into. You're going to keep all them. You're going to keep all your equipment. It's just going to kind of put you back down to a level 0. And if you want to, you can start with a new class, because as you finish each of those classes and you reach to that level 100, you earn more badges. Right? So I've gone through all 4 of the classes. I have badges for being a healer, a mage, a warrior, right? So that's kind of a nice thing that they offer there as well. One of the best aspects of Habitica is really the community. As I mentioned earlier, I've never, in my 5 years on this website, every day, I've never seen anything inappropriate. I've never even like witnessed somebody being rude, which for those of you that spend any time on YouTube nowadays, it's a pretty amazing thing, right? I don't know how they pull it off, but they do. I don't think I've ever even seen an unkind word on this website. So extremely helpful community. When you first get on there, they offer the tavern to anybody. You can pop into the tavern and ask a question. And there's lots of folks that check in regularly. If you have a question, you ask it, you'll probably have an answer within an hour, if not sooner. And then, if more questions come up, Habitica actually has a very, very extensive wiki. I use it probably at least once a week. I've been using this thing for 5 years. I still learn new things about it all the time. So highly recommend that if you're looking for a guide there as well. Oh, that did go a lot fast. Any questions on Habitica before I move on to Gamestar Mechanic? Nothing in the chat, Chris? All right. I must be explaining it really, really well. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. I think we're doing okay. Awesome. Okay, so while Habitica is really for more motivation and organization, Gamestar Mechanic is a tool that I've used for years as an engagement tool with my students. So we'll talk a little bit about that here. Let me make a really quick note on Habitica too, and I forgot to mention that earlier in the presentation. With Habitica, your district might have it blocked. I know the district I work in Rio Rancho, my students can't access Habitica from their student accounts, right? Which is one of the reasons that I when I do talk to them about it, and I let their parents know, hey, send that email, let them start using it. They can use it on their phone, depending on your school's phone policy as well. If nothing else, they can access it from home, which is kind of helpful. So Gamestar Mechanic, this website helps students learn game design and basic drag and drop programming, right? So they don't have to get into real specifics of knowing, those of you that know coding, all the specific, I don't even know what to call it. I guess just the lettering and the writing that, makes things happen, right? Gamestar Mechanic is run purely on drag and drop, similar to Scratch for those of you that have seen Scratch, but actually more user-friendly as well. They also offer benefits like feedback and revision, which I really love for my students. I will mention, I think right up at the front here, so I don't forget to mention it at the end, Gamestar Mechanic is going through a transition right now. So this is kind of an oddly timed thing with the presentation. But I know in my district, we actually lost the regular use of it as far as online, right? Because Gamestar is not working with Chrome at the moment, and they have a workaround that they have sent out where you can actually go in and just download a client that will let your students continue to use it until they've got the new version out, which they're hoping to release this year. Those of us that have been using this for a year are super stoked about it. So let's get going. So again, this slide might look similar. I like to throw this out there right at the start. What does Gamestar Mechanic cost? It's free. Okay. Now, you can do most of what you need to do on Gamestar Mechanic for free. They do have, again, premium accounts. Now, if the students buy their own premium account, it's going to cost them $20. Okay. But if they get their account through you and you have an educator, a teacher account set up through your school, the account only costs them $2, which is really, really nice, especially because it's a lifelong account. Right. And they do get some significant benefits with it. They get a lot more content with it. But if you're in a position where that's not feasible, I've been using the free version for probably the last 2 years, and it's still plenty. There's still lots for them to do. Right. So again, always like to make sure that we're addressing student privacy. This is another website. I tell my students, you may not use your actual name. The only person on the website that will be able to see their actual name is the teacher if they're in a teacher account. Okay. And that way, as the teacher, when you're going in there to grade their games or something, and if you see the username like Ninja Cow, right, you know who Ninja Cow is, right? It doesn't collect personal information from them, which is another nice thing. Yeah, they've done a really nice job of setting this up to be very user-friendly for the kids. There is no ability to private message. So if you work in a district where that's a concern, they're not able to do that on there. They can leave comments on people's games, but the comments are public. So there's nothing going on behind the scenes that everybody doesn't see. All right. And they are incredibly strict on keeping the conversations to being game-based. The users are encouraged to play each other's games. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment, but play the games and leave feedback, right? Because just like the writing process, building a game should go through a lot of the same revision process, hopefully, right? And you might get lucky and get it right perfect the first time, but there's usually room for revision. So they can always go back and revise their games and take the advice of other people. Gamestar will actually, if they see anything, I've seen things happen where students just start talking about a movie that the game reminded them. Oh, this game reminded me of Harry Potter. Oh, hey, have you seen the new Harry Potter? And the admins will get in there and they will they'll delete those comments. If it is not related to the game and how to improve the gaming experience, they keep it off of the website, which is really nice. So the first thing that your students are going to do when they start on Gamestar Mechanic, they're going to start on the quest. That's kind of the first step. They introduce them to the quest through a comic with the protagonist, which is Addison. Addison is gender neutral, so they get to choose their gender as they start off for their avatar, which is kind of nice. And you notice that they set all this up. Everything is put around the idea of gaming. Okay, so you notice just the language itself, right? Really, what's going to happen when they click that blue play button? It's going to start the comic and kind of start teaching them about game design, right? They could have put the word start or start reading something in there, but keeping it around games, they use the word play which I like. And that way they've already got the student's mindset set up around the entire idea of gaming. So what's going to happen as they go through the quest is it's going to start teaching them about game design through a graphic novel story, which is also kind of nice because they see that they're a lot more interested than if it was just a bunch of paragraphs teaching them the same concept, right? So you follow Addison through his or her journey through to Gamestar Mechanic and learning how to be a game designer. As you're going through the stories, various characters that Addison encounters are teaching him about gaming, game dynamics, and what's important to build within games. You can see here, this is probably one of the most important slides within the quest, where John C. is telling Addison about space components, mechanics, goals, and rules, which are the 5 elements that they focus on within Gamestar Mechanic. As they're going through the quest, every once in a while, it stops the story and it gives them a broken game to fix. Or sometimes it's just a game that shows them an example of the concept that they're teaching. So they get that practice with the concepts as they're going. And the progress is auto-saved. So if you have those students that always forget to hit the save button and then are like just really demoralized that they lost their hour worth of work, kind of nice that Gamestar takes care of that for them. All right, so this is an example of what I was just mentioning. One of the first things that they get to do within the quest is fix these broken games. You can see here, there's an example where the avatar, which is in the very bottom left of that play screen, you can see, kind of tiny, I'm sure, but if you can make it out, the idea that they have to accomplish here is they have to collect all those coins, but they can't get to them because the avatar doesn't jump high enough. So what they end up having to do, this part introduces them to the idea of gravity within a platformer game. Right. For those of you that aren't familiar with the two primary gaming perspectives, there's platformer, which is kind of the classic, right? Mario Brothers. You're looking at things from the side. Things are moving to, usually from left to right. But and then there's top-down games. I always tell my students, it's like your face is in the ceiling and you're looking down at what's happening. Okay. Now, platformer games have to have gravity. Obviously, top-down don't, or they would be jumping at your face, right? So this kind of introduces them to that concept and shows them how they're going to have to go in and change the gravity level so that their avatar can actually reach the coins that they need to. At the very end of quest number 1, the last thing that they're going to be asked to do is create a game called Clean Slate. It gives them some very basic requirements. They have to include a certain number of enemy sprites. They have to include a certain number of blocks of each color. Right. But they also, that teaches them how to change the color of the blocks. So they start getting just a little bit at a time, introducing them to these different concepts and how to kind of work with the system and which things are important to consider within a game. Within our gifted classroom, we've used Gamestar mechanic for years in many different ways. Our students' IEP goals, at least one of their goals, are always based in Common Core state standards. And then we also try to always bring in, and this is not just with Gamestar Mechanic, but this is with any other projects that we do in our Gifted Seminar program. Whatever their goals are, we try to take those goals, mix it with their passions, make sure that that goal is should hopefully be set up to be Common Core already, and we synthesize, right? So some of the projects that we've done over the years with Gamestar Mechanic, I like giving some real world examples here. One of the first ones that I start students on after they do Quest 1, as kind of a beginner project, I give them the three-part narrative project. So this introduces them to the idea that, games, the best games have stories, right? It adds to it. As opposed to those of us, I mean, even those of us that play like the old school games, like Space Invaders, right? There's a basic story in there, right? You've got aliens coming down, you're trying to defend whatever it is that's underneath you. We don't really know. We never get to see that. But there is some kind of story. Within the three-part narrative project, I ask my students to first develop a three-part story. Doesn't have to be any kind of Lord of the Rings epic, mind-blowing story or anything, but something that has a clear beginning, middle, and end. And I have them start there. I've had students in the past that start trying to build a game and then fit a narrative around it, and it does not work. I have never seen a student be successful with that method. So it really gets them to kind of start off with that writing piece and then build the game around the story. If you have students that really get into Gamestar Mechanic, particularly if you have students that are really strong in math, one of my favorite projects to do with them is custom backgrounds. Gamestar gives them the ability to upload custom backgrounds. And this kind of goes back to the perspective, right? You've got platformer versus top down. So the students start developing an understanding of what the background represents, right? Is the background, if it's a platformer, you're probably going to see like trees to the side, like what you see behind me here, right? If it's a top down, your background is the floor. So probably not going to make too much sense to have something like what you see behind me being the carpet inside your video game, if you will. Now, so what they've done with the custom backgrounds, students first have to earn the ability to do this, right? Now, they've already, using these other gaming dynamics, they've already earned their publishing rights. I should have mentioned that. Well, so after they finish Quest 1, they earn their publishing license, which means they are allowed to build games and publish them for everybody in the world to play. And this is a worldwide site, which is also kind of cool. The background that you see here in front of you is actually created by a graphic designer in Taiwan, who's very well known on the site and very admired. I always use hers as the example for the kids to show them like the extent of what can be done with the backgrounds. Because really, Gamestar is two-dimensional, and this lady has figured out how to kind of take it and turn it into a three-dimensional looking game, which is pretty cool. Right. But the students do have to kind of have a basic understanding of math and pixelization, because as they're building their backgrounds, they have to know where things go and how they're going to match up with the screen in Gamestar. And these are a couple more examples of what's possible with those custom backgrounds. You can see on the left there, students can create backgrounds with digital graphics. Every time I've ever made one, I always use Microsoft Paint. That's the one that I'm comfortable with. If they have access to GIMP, GIMP is actually, it's a little bit more advanced than Microsoft Paint, but it actually lets them layer things, which is kind of a nice tool as well. Students can also, they can upload hand drawings. One of my favorite games on the website is one that you see on the right side there that a user drew and kind of leads the players through the game by using their drawings, which was just brilliant. Okay. We had a student, actually one of our twice exceptional students years ago, created a game that he actually ended up winning an award for on Gamestar Mechanic, because he found, as he was going through these custom backgrounds, and it's kind of hard to kind of put this into words, but his avatar up there that you see underneath that red arrow, if he walks to the left side of the screen as you're playing this game, this kid somehow figured out, and as long as I've been using this program, I've never seen anybody do anything like this. He made it look like the wall actually starts moving. And I honestly, I still have a hard time wrapping my head around how he does it, but he figured out a way with the settings within Gamestar, and then taking this custom background that he made to create a moving wall. Another one of the projects that we'll do with the students is called MythMaker. The students get to choose, right? And you've probably seen some version of like this basic project somewhere where, you choose a culture of your choice, you find one of their myths, you explore it. But now how are you going to show me what you learned? Right. So here's where Gamestar comes in. Now they're going to build a game to show me that they understood what they read, and to show me that they can use the elements of Gamestar Mechanic within the game to actually create this representation of it and play through it. This is one that one of our students did years ago for the legend of Theseus and the Minotaur. You can see on the right-hand side there, that's Theseus coming back, right? And you can see that little figure that's kind of hovering just above the water. That was the student's representation of Theseus's father, right? When Theseus's father thinks that Theseus is dead and he throws himself into the ocean, that was the way the student represented it. He just had one of the enemy sprites kind of roll off the screen into the ocean, which he selected a custom background for. We also, every time I do Rube Goldberg machines, I do Rube Goldberg machines probably every 2 to 3 years. I give the students different choices. Now, the choices I used to give them was you can build a physical Rube Goldberg machine with a team. Because Rube Goldberg also started as a cartoonist, if you prefer to work on your own and you're kind of more in the art area, that's fine, right? You can make a Rube Goldberg cartoon. One of the first years I did this, one of our students said, "Hey, Mr. Messenger, could I instead of doing that, could I build a video game that plays itself?" Right? I always say my best ideas come from the kids every time. They've got the best ideas. So he did this. This kid ended up getting honorable mentions within the website as well, because it was the first time somebody had done something like this. But he built this game where all you do is you hit the space bar when it first starts off, and your little turtle avatar there is carried throughout this entire level, moved around with different blocks, different enemies that push them in different ways. So this has actually kind of become a staple choice within every time we do the Rube Goldberg unit. They have this option to do this as well. we have another project where students can use Gamestar mechanic to actually create a melody. Everything that they acquire, whether it's that green key, whether it's that little cog sprite point item there, it might be the plant. They all make different noises as you collect them. So some students have figured out a way to start a game to where it's not much of a game really. You kind of hit the start button and those blue blocks, those are motor blocks. They just push the avatar along at the speed that creates a beat, which is kind of cool. I've done a lot of projects around creative writing using Gamestar mechanic as well. One of the kids' favorites to do is those of you that have used Rory's story cubes. They roll the story cubes. There's different symbols on each side of them. So number one, they're interpreting the symbols. And then they have to come up with some kind of story that uses all of the items that came up on the dice. Right? So we kind of have a version of this where if writing isn't their particular forte, or what they're into, if they wanted to instead of writing the story, if they want to build a game that has a story but still uses those ideas, they're absolutely welcome to do that. I know one year when I could not find my story cubes, I had to find a couple workarounds. So there are phone app versions of the story cubes. If you can't find those in one of your local stores. Another method that I've used in the past is if you have the ability to just bring up the Wingdings font on like Microsoft Office and have the kid close their eyes and peck the keyboard, right? 9 times, those are the symbols that you're going to use. One of my other favorites here is doing a game-based book summary. I mentioned this book earlier. When I was going through UNM working on one of my degrees, one of our classes, the teacher gave us this long list of books to choose from, and we had to read the book, and then we had to keep a blog about it, like a weekly blog about what we had read. So kind of taking my students' lead, I went to the instructor and said, hey, so keeping a blog just feels really awkward to me. So what do you think about, since the book that I'm reading is all about games, what if I built a video game summary of it? And she let me roll with it. And it actually turned out really cool. I actually got messaged from the author asking me if she could post my games on Twitter, which was kind of cool. I don't use Twitter, but I guess my games are out there somewhere. So if you come across them, feel free to give them a play. But yeah, the students can use this to actually create, instead of like doing a book report, and we're all often looking for different ways that students can represent what they learned by reading the book, right? And there's all kinds of different ideas out there. Gamestar is just one more avenue for the students to use. Game synthesization. Every year, every time I've done this presentation, I always think about changing the title of this slide because I can't ever say it. Game synthesization. I think I still mispronounced it. So we'll sometimes challenge the kids to create a Gamestar version of your favorite game, whatever that game is. So 2 of my favorite examples here that I included, the one you see on the left, that's obviously not the football game. One of our students created any Big Bang Theory fans out there? Maybe a couple. All right. So the student created a Gamestar version of Rock, Paper, Scissors, Lizard, Spock. So he set it up to be a 2-player game to where they take turns, and depending on which of those they want to select, player 1 goes first and they jump into one of those orange and yellow portals. And he set up all the portals in such a way that the 2 players take their turns, and then it leads the avatar down to whichever one wins. That's the same kid that did that background thing earlier. Same thing here. I have no idea how he did it, but I don't have to either, right? I just have to know he did something pretty special. The football game was one of our earlier versions of this game. The avatar that you see down there at the bottom, you can kind of see the red arrow spinning above his head. That is, and I'm probably gonna lose some status here with some of you. I'm not a football fan, so I don't know the names. I think it's the quarterback that throws the ball, but I'm not sure. So that little guy, I think, is the quarterback. And you can see what you have to do up at the top of this screen. You have to hit the little white bad guy without hitting anybody else. So in this case, the student actually used an avatar with a blaster to kind of represent the football. And throwing an accurate pass is shooting one of the bad guys, but a specific bad guy. You can't just shoot any of them, because if you shoot any, you see those numbers at the top where it says 8/8 and 11/11. That means if you shoot any of those other guys, you can't win. You've already lost. You have to have all 8 of that one guy that's got the yellow shield. You have to have 11 of the other guy. So very, very detail oriented and very impressive there as well. Other ideas that we've done over the years, Gamestar Technical Writer is one that I created probably 4 or 5 years ago. The students have to build a game, and I tell them I am going to play the role of the world's biggest moron. And your instructions should lead me through how to build your game. Very, very detailed, right? So they have to tell me exactly where to click, exactly which avatars to pull in, which blocks to put where, and watching the students try to figure that out and how to best communicate that has been really, really awesome over the years, and getting to see the different approaches that they use. Gamestar also offers an Apprentice Badge. Students can go through and do some various activities. It's what I like about it is that it very strongly relates to the writing portion that we're always trying to encourage within our students. That idea of thinking about things from the audience's perspective, right? They have to do the same thing when they're earning this Apprentice Badge. Gamestar has them go in and say, okay, you're going to design a game for somebody in your life. Who are you going to design a game for? Right? Okay, your little brother. Okay, what is it about your little brother that you want to do special for this game? Like, why are you putting in certain aspects within the game that you're going to build for your little brother? What is it about your little brother that makes you think he's going to like this particular thing that you put in there? So it encourages them to kind of start thinking about things, not from their perspective, but from the perspective of others. And if they earn that Apprentice Badge, they get, again, that gaming dynamic. They get that status symbol of this badge that shows up on their account that other people don't have, which they really like. Dueling Perspectives. I've only been able to do this one a couple times because you have to have a couple of really strong writers to do this one. But the Dueling Perspectives is 2 students working together to create a story. But after they've worked together to create the story, I have one of them build the game from the protagonist's point of view, and the other builds a similar game that they should kind of match up, but it's from the antagonist's point of view, right? So so while they are building their own games, they're also simultaneously working together to try to make sure that they do match up. Sprite Hunter is one that they really like. That's more of a quick project. If you can see down at the very bottom, there's like a little purple rectangle that has like what looks to be like some evil French fries, right? These are the health sprites, and they have to have a special code to be able to earn these sprites. Right? They earn all kinds of other sprites as they're going through the quests and all that, but the health sprites, and there's some others that I found over the years as well. They really like the health sprites. They love those little evil French fries. I don't know what it is about it, but they all like to have that one. So anytime they ask me, because they'll see them on my account and they'll say, Mr. Messenger, how do I get those? I said, there's a code online. Okay, where? I don't know. I don't remember. And then I set them for, I kind of encourage that and use that as kind of the carrot, if you will, to get them to start searching. And I will tell you, the codes are hard to find online. It took me a couple hours to hunt them down. So watching the kids try to use their internet search skills to find these things is just a challenge in and of itself. And it's incredibly rewarding for them when they actually track it down and they get to plug in that special code that gives them the extra sprites. Most importantly, like I mentioned there before, be open to student suggestions. They really do. If you're willing to listen to them, they will give you your best ideas every time. The other aspect that we always throw in, this isn't necessarily gamification, but after every project that our students complete, they give us a typed reflection. And my prompt is always the same. Please, type a cogent paragraph explaining how your project related to your IEP goals. And now what I'm doing is I'm encouraging my students to become more familiarized with their own goals and to draw those connections between, well, here's what I did, here's what my goal is. Where are the similarities, right? And they kind of find some loosely at the beginning, right? Because if they can't tell me at the beginning of the project how it relates to their goals, then they can't choose that project. they have to have some kind of basic understanding. But after the project, they're able to go into much more detail. And now I've got a piece of writing. If they didn't already do writing in the project, I've got writing that I can work with them on as well to help them improve in that area. Now, kind of taking this back to the very start of this section of the presentation with what I mentioned about Mark Prensky and digital natives versus digital immigrants. The reason that I like to throw in this reflection piece, Mark Prensky has written quite a few times about how our digital native students, they lack the ability to reflect more than any generation before them, which makes total sense if you think about it, right? They're never sitting around bored, right? A lot of us grew up, if we're on a road trip, you're not on your phone. You didn't have a phone. You're looking out the windows. You're playing the license plate game. Maybe you're doing the slug bug game. But we had those moments of boredom. We had those times where we would just sit around and think. And our kids don't do that a lot of nowadays. They're moving from one thing to the next, and they've actually found that their brains are physiologically different, very likely because of this. So if nothing else, I like to include the reflection for this reason, because they do need that practice. They need to have something there where they just even for a day every month or so, where they're taking some time to look back and say, okay, what did I do well, and what could I do better next time I do this? So something to keep in mind there as well. As far as the functionality of Gamestar Mechanic, I'll go through this part kind of fast because I know I'm getting short on time here. This is what you see as far as the home screen. You will have the quest that I mentioned earlier, your workshop where you build your games, as well as Game Alley, which is where you can go to play other people's published games. This is my workshop. When I go into my workshop and I want to build a game, this is where I go to do that. You can see that I have badges that I've earned. Again, going back to those gaming dynamics, I've got those world badges. You can see that I've earned my Apprentice Badge that I was talking about a couple moments ago. I've also earned my Mentor Badge on Gamestar Mechanic. They have multiple achievements, and the kids, you might kind of draw a parallel between this and Habitica. There's different kinds of XP that they earned. There's Citizenship Xp. So if they do see something on there where maybe another student in some other country or some other state found a creative way to put a cuss word in there, right? If you report that to the admins, they earn some Citizenship XP. Right. So it really encourages them to kind of be a good citizen within the realm of Gamestar Mechanic, and try to up their character, because they have to get all those progress bars. Again, one of those gaming dynamics, right? They have to get all those progress bars up to 100% before they move on to the next rank. They also have some hidden achievements. One of the best ones on there is the try again. You get that one for failing to beat a video or a particular level. I think it's 50 times, but you kept trying, right? So they have hidden badges in there as well, which is kind of a nice surprise for the kids. This is one of the ones that I was talking about earlier. This is the Apprentice. It leads them through all the different requirements, going through, reflecting on the quest, reflecting on unbalanced missions, how you're going to make a gift game, how you're going to think about your audience's perspective. This is just an example of what you see when the kids actually have to fill in the information. Okay, this top section, you will only see if you have the teacher account, right? So this is where I can go in and I can look at all kinds of information about my students. I can see every comment that they have left, so I can monitor that. I can assign them class projects on there. The student tracking, if I go in there, that's the section that it tells me their actual name. Like if I'm confused about who Ninja Cow is, I can go in there and say, oh, okay, that's right. Ninja Cow was Gustav. Okay, now I know who to give the A to. When they start off draft games, this is what I meant about the drag and drop programming. It just gives them a blank grid. And you can see over on the right there, they have sprites. They just grab those with their mouse and they pull them over, drag and drop programming, put it in the area that they want. There's an example of what it could look like after you've finished the game. The other nice thing is that Gamestar will give you statistics about your games, and they tell the kids, if you really want to build a phenomenal game, ideally, right? If you look at those charts on the right-hand side, you want something that's kind of funnel shaped, but not significantly funnel shaped like you see on the bottom one, right? On the top, that tells them if everybody's beating every level of your game, it's probably too easy. It's not very challenging, right? Which means that it's going to get boring. If you've got that funnel shape, that means you're starting off kind of easy and progressively getting a little bit harder, like most successful games do. Okay. We'll skip that for now. They do have contests. I'll mention that we've had a couple students win over the years. It's usually like the prize is like usually a pretty high quality laptop, but they'll have games usually once or twice a year. And if you do assign them the projects, you have the ability to actually view their draft games as they are working on them, which is a nice aspect, especially for those of us that are doing virtual teaching. They give them template games that they can work off if they're having a hard time kind of starting off. They can give them like a base just to start off with there. And let's see. And then you have a favorite game section. So anytime I have a student that builds a phenomenal game, I click the little heart on their game and it puts it in my favorites section. And this is how I share exemplars. You know, if I have students that are doing the Mythmaker project, I keep that Theseus and the Minotaur game in my favorites so that I can recommend, hey, before you get started on this project, I want you to see what an exemplar looks like. Go to my workshop and look for this game and give that a play, right? And they always love that because they get to start off their projects by playing a game in the first place. Okay, and as far as the teacher stuff, I'll burn through this really fast. You have all the information about your institution, and you can enable and disable different aspects of it if you are the account holder. Student tracking, this shows me exactly what my students are doing, how many games they published, how many they have in draft, how many reviews they've left, how many comments they've left, how far they've gotten on their quests. All the information's right there. I've whited out what you see, those little white blocks, that's their actual names. I didn't want to put their actual names out there, so those are blocked, but that's where you would see the students' real names. An example of what you would see is the teacher in your class projects page. A little bit more detail. We're short on time, so we're going to skip that. You can do different settings for your projects. You can allow them to submit drafts. You can tell it whether or not you want to allow late submissions. So there's a lot of different settings you can use as the teacher within this as well. Gamestar automatically gives you a lot of projects. Now, most of the projects I do, I've written on my own. Some, like the 3-part narrative, I just took directly from Gamestar. So they have a bunch of pre-made projects already in there that you can assign. Okay, the student discussions, you can see students get in there and leave comments for each other about different aspects of your game. They comment on the visuals. What was the gameplay like? Was there a story? And if there was a story, was it any good? And if you are like some of my colleagues and you're thinking, yeah, how am I going to grade this stuff? Because like, don't I have to play the game to be able to grade it, right? And I don't want to spend my time doing that. As the teacher, you get a cheat button. So anytime I'm playing my students' games, if I pause it, this is what I see is I get these cheats. I can automatically win the level. I can make my avatar invincible so I don't die if I want to look at throughout the game. So you have these options. If you're not a gamer, that doesn't mean you can't allow your students to do this too. You can still get in there and grade these things. And that is it, folks. I think I ended a few minutes late, so thank you guys for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Do you guys have any questions before I say adios? Wait time.
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Yeah, Corey.
So you're saying like I mean, this is more Rio Rancho specific, I guess, but right now this is not something that's approved for us to use.
So now Habitica, I don't know about other districts. I know Rio Rancho does not allow the students to access Habitica. That's one of the reasons I let them use their phones for it at home and encourage them to do it that way. For Gamestar Mechanic, the students do have access to it. However, there's kind of that weird glitch going on right now where Gamestar is, because they run on Flash and Google Chrome stopped supporting Flash Player. Yeah. Gamestar is actually retooling. They're coming out with a new version. But in the meantime, they do have something up on their website where you can download a conversion tool. So you can have your students download this if they're able to. Mine have not been having much luck on the Chromebooks at home right now. So we're kind of finding some workarounds. But honestly, right now, Corey, we're waiting for that new version to come out before we kind of hit the ground running with Gamestar again.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. Anybody else? It's always that awkward moment. You have that wait time. Do this in class all the time too.
So
All right.
Bernadine posted in chat that the site says, starting January 1st, 2021, you will need to use a special app to connect to Gamestar Mechanic. And it has a link to follow to learn how to do that.
Awesome. Thank you for including that. I appreciate it. Yeah, that's that conversion tool that I was talking about. So that's how I've been accessing it. I was able to kind of get that onto my computer, and so I can still go on Gamestar and access those games. It just gives you a way to continue using Flash without going through Chrome. But Gamestar is working on a new version that is still web-based, so that kids can continue to play it online, if that makes sense. Awesome. Well, if there are no other questions, thank you all so much for your time. And I debated for like 2 hours before this whether I was going to end this with this cheesy line, but that's our presentation. So game over. Thank you all very much.